Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome to Adventures in History. Today's topic is Comedic Pedro Part 4. In the last Comedic Pedro, the cover photo was a photo of Groucho Marx. Groucho Marx was a tremendous, famous comedian in the 1930s. Now, when I was a boy in the 1970s, I turned 10 and 70, and so I was an adolescent. But anyway, he was still up. There were references to him because my parents' generation, that was part of their childhood. So I was aware of Groucho Marx. I thought he was pretty cool. He had he had a thick mustache and thick eyebrows. I even went to a Halloween party when I was 17, dressed as Groucho Marx. I got black electrical tape to make my black mustache and black eyebrows, and actually, years later, for the heck of it, I dyed. I had a mustache, but it wasn't very great. So I dyed my mustache and eyebrows black, and so tried to look like that. And a friend of mine said, "Oh, Pete, you could be a bartender." Anyway, so Groucho Marx. Now, a funny story is when I was in school, we had a project. I was pretty shy and awkward. We had a project where we had to team up with a classmate and ask each other questions or share information. And one of the questions we were asked to answer was, if you're alone on a desert island and you could be with any person in history, who would you like to be with? Pick a famous person. So I had written, you write it down, then later you share it, and I'd written down Groucho Marx. I think I wrote it down, or maybe thought of it. Anyway, when it came time, I was with this girl. I didn't know her. I was shy, and I said, and to answer that question, I said, Karl Marx. And she said, Karl Marx? And she was kind of shocked and seemed to be upset. And so I quickly recovered, and I had actually misspoke. I said, oh no, I meant Groucho Marx. And it was funny because Karl Marx is the father of communism, and he didn't have a sense of humor. Communists don't have a sense of humor. In fact, they outlaw comedy, because they're worried that people will make fun of the government. In every country, people make fun of the leaders, but for the communists, they thought this is a threat to their power, so comedy was outlawed. And that was true in communist China. You could not make jokes about Mao Zedong. So anyway, last time we were talking about work as a topic, and I thought that, I'll continue with that today. It's a part of life. Life is funny. The divine comedy, the life we're living. God created us, and some spiritual people believe this is sort of a divine entertainment, and comedy is important. It's good to laugh. We need to work. Actually, my father's mother, Gertrude Zook Ray, you've seen some of her videos where her letters. And a couple of her expressions were, she was a hard-working person. My dad came from a Germanic background, and she said, sing while you work, or whistle while you work. People don't whistle anymore. It's like, in the old days, remember there was actually that TV show, the Andy Griffith Show. I really liked. It had the famous whistling that went along with Andy and his son going fishing. Anyway, I'm out of practice with whistling. It's really a fine show. The Andy Griffith Show, if you ever have reruns, I'm sure you can see them on YouTube. So anyway, but actually my father is a very hard worker. Yeah, so topic of work. Yeah, I remember I won an Eagle Award in Boy Scouts, the highest award in Boy Scouts. My father and brother also received that award, and my father had to do a write-up of me, like a biography of me, and he included that I was a willing worker. A lot of people don't, they're kind of, we have to work. Let's face it, work's important. Things need to get done, right? Things need to get done. And but a lot of people are they work grudgingly. They hate work, maybe, and that's why they dream of being rich so they don't have to work. But if you're a willing worker, it's better to be a willing worker. Enjoy your work. And if you're a willing worker, then, you'll do a better job and you'll enjoy yourself. Won't be miserable waiting for your job, waiting for quitting time, or retirement or the weekend, whatever. So my dad was a hard worker, very successful, actually. Yeah, and he, one of the things with work is you need to concentration, to focus your mind on things that you're doing, whatever it is, and because that's what it takes. The work involves the mind and the body, and both are important. And the concentration is the mind. It doesn't matter how physical the work is, you still have the mental aspects. And so my father was very good at concentration. That was his thing. Because he was a lawyer, and he used to say, Pete, you need to focus, because my mind would tend to be kind of scattered and so forth. And if you get into history, that's actually kind of a good field to, or very easily to be distracted, because history is so vast. You go bounce around through history from one thing to another. He'd say, Pete, you need to focus. So I go, okay, Dad. And he did. I had actually a friend of mine who said he had trouble in school. He tried to study. He'd sit there and study. He just couldn't concentrate. Concentration is so important. So, and my father, he did very well. He became a lawyer. He was a chemist for a while. He was a lawyer, very successful lawyer, did very well financially. And back in the 60s, he did so well that he made enough money that we started going to the Bahamas when I was 5 years old every year for many years, for once a year, and then actually twice a year. So from the age of 5, 1965, I was flying. It was kind of unusual. That was early, relatively early. Nowadays, everybody flies. It's no big deal. But back then, not many people were flying. My father used to wear a suit and tie. Back then, you got dressed up. You wore formal attire on an airplane. Again, today you don't see that so much. I was kind of shocked when I saw people on an airplane once without very, very casual clothing. It's not like the old days. So anyway, we started taking these trips to the Bahamas. It was an island. We went to one place, and then eventually we settled on this island called Cistern Key in the Exumas in the Bahamas. Bahamas is an archipelago, a very small archipelago off the coast of Florida, the southeast coast of Florida. So we started going to this island. We spent a month. Yeah. And we started from 65 on. And my father actually bought property on the island by 1971 from the owner, Will C. Grant. That was the year. And, I remember this. That's jumping ahead. One year I was reading Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler. Oh, gosh, on Cistern Key. Anyway, in 71, my father bought property on the island because the owner, he wanted to have others. I guess he was interested in selling some property. And we still have that. My sister is the one who owns that now and goes there. I haven't been in a long time. So it has a real long beach. Beautiful, very nice property. And nice to get away from my parents. For them, my dad needed a break. My parents were driven people. Go, 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 go. All very, very busy doing so many things. And then they really needed to get away from it. Get away from it all, and in winter here in Cleveland, where it's so cold, cold and cloudy and gloomy, to get some sunshine, and so we started going. And the early years, it was just sort of we'd have a good time, going swimming in the ocean and the beach and so forth. And then my dad bought this property. Actually, that same year, it was in 71. My sister died on the island. My sister Pamela. Oh, unbelievable. Yeah, she was sick. We used to fly into the island on an airplane, a seaplane, that would land in the water. And then local guys would come out in boats, small boats, and they'd take us into the shore. Anyway, so she got sick. My sister got sick a couple days before we left. I think 2 days before we left, she got sick. And the day before, it was a Saturday, she was getting sicker. And then... And apparently, this local Bahamian guy said to my dad, "Do you want to have an airplane come to take your daughter to the hospital in Nassau, capital city of the Bahamas?" My dad said, "No, we're leaving tomorrow. She'll be okay till tomorrow." Well, after dark, she got very, very sick, and then apparently these seaplanes still can't fly at night. It's not safe. So by that, After it got dark, we were stuck. And she died at 6 a.m., well, or supposedly at dawn on Easter Sunday, April 11, 1971. So, yeah, now there's nothing comedic about that. But, you have to laugh. Eventually life is painful, and that's why the Jewish people, maybe the greatest comedians of all time, Groucho Marx was Jewish, and they've had a very painful history, and comedy has helped them to cope with their hardships. Filipinos are funny people; they're very funny, and they've had a very tragic history. 333 years under the Spanish. So anyway, and actually as a boy, I was a comedian growing up. I was a funny little boy. I always had that quality. And I remember, but then after Pam died, I couldn't make my parents laugh anymore. I felt bad about that. But anyway, so we're on the topic of work. And I'll get to that. We're getting to that. So all of a sudden we had this property, and the next year my parents couldn't bear to go back to the Bahamas. I thought we'd never go back. I thought, well, we're never going to go back there. But 2 years later, we went to Mexico. 2 years later, we were back in the Bahamas and staying on our property, the property my father had bought. Now, there were no houses there. In the first visit, we stayed in a tent, but it was very, the tent, the roof on the tent was just, like a canvas, just cloth. So the sun would beat down, and oh boy, it was hot. So eventually my brother and his girlfriend and my sister and I, we used to go to a cave to get out of the heat. And then, but that year, in 1972, my mom was plotting. Both my parents were strong-willed people. And my mom started planning to build a house on the property. And in fact, I helped her. There were ruins of 2 houses on the property. There was apparently a British loyalist, some good American history, a guy named Henry Dorset during the American Revolution from 1776 to 1783. A guy who was loyal to Great Britain decided to leave. He didn't want to be a part of the United States, and he went to the Bahamas, which was a British colony and remained so up until the 60s. I think 1967 maybe. And he lived on this island, back in probably the 1790s or in the early 1800s, and he built 2 houses there. And then by the time we, were coming, they were just ruins. There were walls that were of these 2 houses that went up about 3 feet. And then there was just sort of rubble around the walls. So my mother, that trip, she said, "Oh, Peter, she says, let's see what we can do here." So we started trying to remove some of the rubble inside the house and create some order. And then the next year, in 73, I think it was, we had a construction trip. Now we're getting the concept of work. So this is a vacation. My dad's made good money, worked hard, and we're going to go down to this place. But it was still a beautiful place. But we worked, and we were building a house. We built a house, and it took a number of trips. My dad rented a boat from Nassau because all this stuff. We had all this wood, lumber, 2x4s and 4x4s, and lathing, which is sort of a kind of a thinner wood, and nails and cement, some plywood. And we had to wait a few days because of the weather. It was stormy. So we finally made it got all this stuff to the island on this boat, and the guys threw the wood into the water. It floated ashore. Then we started working, and the first job was to. Actually, we had help from a local guy. Yeah, we weren't carpenters, and we could do like the manual, the unskilled labor. But with this guy, real nice guy. His name was Mr. Ferguson. Can't remember his first name. Super nice guy. And he he was a carpenter, and he helped us. And he'd come over different times to make sure certain things needed to be in. Like the 4 corners of the house had 4x4 supports to support the roof. And those had to be put in, done right, to make sure they're straight. And so he would come for that. And but actually, at one point when we were doing the roof, I know we had a famous dramatic moment when my brother Mark had they had the 4x4s, and then they had the 2x4s going up to the top, like the peak of the roof. And then there was also a 2x4 going from one end to the other. And my brother and my mom used to talk. Mark had this beam on his shoulder. So anyway, but before we got to that was actually the next trip. But before we got to that point, early on it was mostly cement work. and building these walls up first, at least part of the way, and then we had screens the rest of the way, and then the roof. And so, and that's when I learned a lot about cement. Have some cement making experience. It was fun. Actually, my mom was a real, she really drove us. She was like the chain gang driver. And we used to get, now for cement you need the cement and sand and water. And we used seawater, which isn't great because it has salt in it. But it's not a big project, so it was okay. And then you need sand, and we had this beach, all this sand. So we had a chain gang carrying buckets of sand and some water, mostly sand, bring up to somebody be on the beach, and they'd carry it up a distance to the next person, and then they'd carry the bucket to the next person. We had like maybe 3 or 4 buckets, and then this bucket brigade of sand. And then what my job, I was like the cement guy. I'd have to mix, I think it was like 3 parts cement for 1 part, 3 parts sand for 1 part cement. So, I'd do that. I'd make up a load of that and mix it all together, and then make a depression in the middle and pour water in that, and then try to slowly mix the water in, and then you'd have cement. And then, of course, it has to be used quickly because it dries. So then the different people would come. My mom and dad and a family friend came, old friend Chip Richmond, and my sister Patricia, her friend Mary Faulkner. And so they were putting these pieces of stones, and there was like coral. It's like a coral island. Well, the stone is from ancient coral from who knows how long. And so they're putting these stones and coral in, and then using cement to put them in place. And I was the cement guy, so that was fun. Yeah, we did that, and eventually got the roof up. We had to go into the bush to cut palm fronds. Initially, we had a palm frond roof. We thought it would be pretty. I remember we started, we'd have to find these, and we had to go to the other side of the island, actually, to get larger ones, because the ones near us were too small. A palm frond, it's a plant. It's like a huge leaf. And that's what we used to make the roof, because we thought it would be pretty. And initially, you start at the bottom and go up to the top. And remember, I thought it looked like Don Hood's mustache. Don Hood was a pitcher for the Cleveland Indians back then. So anyway, we got that done. The problem with a palm frond roof is that it deteriorates over time, or actually fairly quickly. And next thing you know, you have leaks. We actually did it again, and we finally got tired of that. So we put in just a regular a wooden roof, like wooden slates. I think, I'm not sure exactly, but and then actually that house ended up being destroyed in a typhoon a few years ago. I think it's now pretty much gone. But later my parents had a better. A more substantial home built that's still there that my sister uses when she goes down with her daughters. So anyway, that was an experience with working in the Bahamas. Yeah, we go down to the Bahamas, and I used to have to do homework. So we'd be doing this construction and be studying for classes and so forth. But anyway, that's kind of interesting. Now again, that we moved into a home in Rocky River. I told you before about all the yard work we had to do, cutting the grass, big yard, and raking leaves and shoveling snow. But then the other thing is the property went down to Lake Erie. You had the property, and then it was inclining, and then it would drop off down some distance, and there was a flat area at the bottom, and then over toward this wall and by Lake Erie, one of the Great Lakes. And I think the first summer after we moved in, there was a big storm, and that wall broke, and a huge depression was created that sucked out all this, land, basically. So we go down there one day, and oh my God, look at this, like half or a huge part, maybe close to half or a third of it the grass was gone in a big depression. So again, more work we had to, and that happened like 3 or 4 times before my father finally figured out a solution. But in the meantime, we'd have to fix it every time, and we were carrying. Eventually, my dad got this, bought a pump that would pump sand and water up from the bottom of Lake Erie. And then under the house, there was actually a small so-called beach house. Under it was a so-called boathouse that would get sand. We'd go in there and get sand from there. And then my father got these sand bags from the government, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So we'd fill up these sandbags, put them in the hole, my father would have to have a delivery of topsoil and sod, which is grass. So I spent a number of summers working down there, and along with my brother and sister and some friends who came to work for my father. Actually, at one point, my father had these large stones delivered, huge, several tons, to try to stop the waves from destroying the break wall. The problem is those all sank in the sand at the bottom of the lake. And eventually, he put in a heavy, like a capstone or cement. He cemented the area near the water of a distance of about 8 feet, and then down about several feet. And then we never had a problem since then. Of course, we sold the property later. So that's a lot of this work we had to do based on that. My father making a lot of money led to more work. But it's a little variety. It's nice to have different types of work, especially if you work in an office. My dad, he was a lawyer, so he enjoyed doing yard work outdoors. Now, moving forward in my own life, actually, one year we were down in the Bahamas, and I saw these conch fishermen working. They were fishing. A conch is a shell. It lives on the bottom of the ocean, and it travels. It has it's a mollusk, kind of like a clam. It's not a fish. It's this has a shell. There's an animal inside the shell. Of course, if the animal dies later, a hermit. These crabs can take over them later if the crabs are looking for homes. Anyway, so it's a shell. It's fairly big, a conch shell. So conch, and the animal can be eaten. People eat the conch, and then there are these conch fishermen coming down, and they would be anchoring right out off their beach, and then although it was illegal what they're doing, it because it's in the Land and Sea Park, the Exuma Land and Sea Park in the Bahamas. Anyway, I thought these guys were pretty cool. They're Bahamian guys. Bahamians are African descent because the original people of the Bahamas all died. They all got sick and died from disease or depression or suicide when the Spanish came, introduced disease and enslaved them. Some of them committed suicide. So then later it became a British colony. The British brought in all these African slaves. And their descendants are the Bahamian people today. So I made friends with these guys. I thought they were cool guys, these black guys. They're fishermen, and I said, I'd like to work for you. And so the guy says, okay. And so my parents went back. I stayed down in the Bahamas, and I only went on one voyage. So I think it was like a 3-week voyage. Lived on the boat. I remember I asked the guy, I said, what do you guys have for breakfast? He said, oh, we have cake. And he actually meant pancakes, but I didn't understand him at the time. So actually a conch fisherman. So I worked as a conch fisherman. I never got paid, which is fine. It was a nice experience. And what you do is you just dive to you have this, what do you call this? It's not scuba, it's a snorkel. Snorkel mask and a tube, and you have your fins on your feet to help you. And you dive to the bottom of the ocean, and it's not too deep, and then you're looking for conch, and you go down and pick up one, or probably one at a time, and take them to the boat, put it on the boat, go back, keep diving. So, and I think they get a load of about 2,000. They're pretty heavy, and they bring them back to Nassau and sell them. So that was an interesting job. I enjoyed that, and eventually the guy said, "Man, you got to get a work permit. I'll get in trouble." So the next voyage, he went on another trip. I stayed in Nassau. I painted his house pink and yellow. I don't know if he appreciated that, but especially the colors. But and then I never was able to get a work permit. And then I was a troubled young man back then. I was drinking and so forth. So I left the Bahamas, and that was the end of my conch fishing career. And then I'm trying to think now going forward a little bit. Eventually I came home, and I was, this was like 1983. I was troubled, but eventually I quit drinking, and I was trying to get my life together. I worked for an agency, a temporary agency. They'll send you to different jobs. It's not these short-term jobs. It might be one day, it might be a week. And actually, one of my first jobs ended up being for 2 months, and it was what an experience. It was tough. I worked at a factory in Cleveland, west side of Cleveland, Union Carbide. They made batteries for highway warning. When there's highway construction, they have like warning lights for people to take it easy, and when they need to, when the guys are working on fixing the highway. Anyway, so my job was I worked in an office in the factory, and my title was materials expediter. And these fellas, man, I was so intimidated because it's a factory, a lot of tough guys. I'm not a tough guy, and these big, strong guys working in a factory. And I'm not a big, strong, tough guy, but I was in the office, and my job was guys would come in and say, "Hey, Pete, I need a Boulder motor with a side mount, Bonnie Speed." They'd say they would need something for their work, for the factory, something get broken or whatever. And I would be the guy who would have to call a supplier to get the part and to order the part, right? And the thing is, I was very depressed at the time. Yeah, I was depressed to the point of mental retardation, which is hard. That was my experience. I just was stupid, couldn't think very well. So a guy'd come in and they'd be in kind of a hurry sometimes to tell me what they want, and I'd be trying to write. I don't know what they're talking about, and then I write it down, and then I call up the supplier. They ask me questions about it, and I don't know, so I have to go find the guy in the factory, and he's kind of getting irritated. He's in a hurry to get this part. So, and then usually everything was last minute, like, I got to have it now. I have to have special delivery. So I'd have to go to the finance department to get permission from those guys because it's an extra expense. And they go, "What the hell? Why is this? Why can't you people plan? We're wasting money by these special delivery charges." So I'd go back to the guy and tell him something like, he says, why can't they wait? So I'd go back to the guy who talked to me at first. He goes, "I need that now. For God's sakes, Pete, go order that today. I don't want to talk to you anymore." I go, "Oh, okay." And I'm sorry. So every day I was getting yelled at, and it was just really, really tough. But it's one of those things in life, I got through it. So anyway, it appears we're out of time. Thank you so much for watching. I wish you well. God bless you. Take care, and I'll see you next time.